Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, right here in the live studios in Hive, far away from the madding crowds. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty much self-isolated, have been for a couple of months. Could be worse, being in this very peaceful place, where I can look out my window and see the English Channel at a little bit of a distance. And here we are together. We welcome all of you out there in cyberspace. We hope you're all safe and well and happy, hearing the Caitanya-caritämrta every day. I hope it's giving you relief from whatever difficulties you may be having at this very difficult time in the history of the Earth planet. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he recognized that there were troubles, but then he made this statement. In due course, Mahapralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then you do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstance release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it has subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityänanda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta-vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityänanda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta-vrinda, Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityänanda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Okay. We've heard about all the different reasons for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's advent on this earth. And now we're into the glories of Lord Nityânanda Ram. And in doing that, it's describing the structure of the material and spiritual worlds and what Lord Nityânanda has to do with all those things. So in the process of describing the cosmography of the spiritual and material worlds, we've reached text 16 of chapter 5, Ädi-lilä. That Vaikuntha region is all-pervading, infinite, and supreme. It is the residence of Lord Krishna and his incarnations. Text 16. In that highest region of the spiritual sky is the spiritual planet called Krishna Loka. It has three divisions: Dwarka, Mathura, and Gokula. Sri Gokula, the highest of all, is also called Braja, Goloka, Shweta-dweep, and Vrindavan. Text 18. Like the transcendental body of Lord Krishna, Gokula is all-pervading, infinite and supreme. It expands both above and below, without any restriction. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami, the great authority and published and philosopher in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has discussed the abode of Krishna in his Krishna Sandarbha. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord refers to my abode. Srila Jiva Goswami, examining the nature of Krishna's abode, refers to the Skanda Purana, which states, Ya yata bhuvi vartante puryo bhagavatak priyaha tas tata santi vaikunte tad-tal lilartam adritaha. The abodes of Godhead in the material world, such as Dwarka, Mathura, and Gokula, are facsimiles representing the abodes of Godhead in the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha Dham. The unlimited spiritual atmosphere of that Vaikuntha Dham is far above and beyond the material cosmos. This is confirmed in the Swayambhuva Tantra, in a discussion between Lord Shiva and Parvati regarding the effect of chanting the mantra of 14 syllables. There it is stated, Nana kalpa lata kirnam vaikuntam vyapakam smaret atak samyam gunanam cha prakriti sarvakaranam. While chanting the mantra, you should always remember the spiritual world, which is very extensive and full of desire trees that can yield anything one desires. Below that Vaikuntha region is the potent material energy which causes the material manifestation. The places of the pastimes of Lord Krishna, such as Dwarka, Mathura, and Vrindavan, eternally and independently exist in Krishna Loka. They are the actual abodes of Lord Krishna, and there is no doubt that they are situated above the material cosmic manifestation. The abode known as Vrindavan or Gokula is also known as Goloka. The Brahma Samhita states that Gokula, the highest region in the kingdom of God, resembles a lotus flower with thousands of petals. The outer portion of that lotus-like planet is a square place known as Shwetadweep. In the inner portion of Gokula, there is an elaborate arrangement for Sri Krishna's residence with his eternal associates, such as Nanda and Yashoda. That transcendental abode exists by the energy of Sri Baladev, who is the original whole of Shesha or Ananta. The Tantras also confirm this description by stating that the abode of Sri Anantadev, a plenary portion of Baladev, is called the Kingdom of God. Vrindavan Dham is the innermost abode within the quadrangular realm of Shwetadweep, which lies outside of the boundary of Gokula, Vrindavan. According to Jiva Goswami, Vaikuntha is also called Brahmaloka. The Narada Pancharatra, in a statement concerning the mystery of Vijay, describes Tat sarvo parigole ke tatra loko pariswayam viharet paramanandi govindo tulanayakaha. The predominator of the gopis, Govinda, the principal deity of Gokula, always enjoys himself in a place called Goloka, in the topmost part of the spiritual sky. From the authoritative evidence cited by Jiva Goswami, we may conclude that Krishna Loka is the supreme planet in the spiritual sky, which is far beyond the material cosmos. For the enjoyment of transcendental variety, the pastimes of Krishna have three divisions, and these pastimes are performed in the three abodes, Dwarka, Mathura, and Gokula. When Krishna descends to this universe, he enjoys the pastimes in places of the same name. These places on earth are non-different from those original abodes, for they are facsimiles of those original holy places in the transcendental world. They are as good as Lord Sri Krishna himself and are equally worshipable. Lord Chaitanya declared that Lord Krishna, who presents himself as the son of the king of Braja, is worshipable, and that Vrindavan Dham is equally worshipable. Text 19. That abode is manifested within the material world by the will of Lord Krishna. It is identical to that original Gokula. They are not two different bodies. Purport. The above mentioned dhams, just one second, excuse me. The above mentioned dhams are movable by the omnipotent will of Lord Krishna. When Sri Krishna appears on the face of the earth, he can also make his dhams appear without changing their original structure. One should not discriminate between the dhams on the earth and those in the spiritual sky, thinking those on earth to be material and on the original abodes to be spiritual. All of them are spiritual. Only for us, who cannot experience anything beyond matter in our present conditioned state, do the Dhammas and the Lord himself, in his archa form, appear before us resembling matter to give us the facility to see spirit with material eyes. In the beginning, this may be difficult for a neophyte to understand, but in due course, when one is advanced in devotional service, it will be easier and he will appreciate the Lord's presence in these tangible forms. Text 20. The land there is touchstone, Chintamani, and the forests abound with desire trees. Material eyes see it as an ordinary place. Purport. By the grace of the Lord, his dhams and himself can all be present simultaneously without losing their original importance. Only when one fully develops in affection and love of Godhead, only when one fully develops in affection and love of Godhead, can one see those dhammas in their original appearance. Srila Narottam Das Thakur, a great acharya in the preceptorial line of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has said for our benefit that one can perfectly see the dhammas only when one completely gives up the mentality of lording it over material nature. One's spiritual vision develops proportionately to one's giving up the debased mentality of unnecessarily enjoying matter. A diseased person who has become diseased because of a certain bad habit must be ready to follow the advice of the physician, and as a natural sequence, he must attempt to give up the cause of the disease. The patient cannot indulge in the bad habit and at the same time expect to be cured by the physician. Modern materialistic civilization, however, is maintaining a diseased atmosphere. The living being is a spiritual spark, as spiritual as the Lord himself. The living being, the only difference is that the Lord is great and the living being is small. Qualitatively they are one, but quantitatively they are different. Therefore, since the living being is spiritual in constitution, he can be happy only in the spiritual sky, where there are unlimited spiritual spheres called Vaikuntha Lokas, Vaikunthas. A spiritual being conditioned by a material body must therefore try to get rid of his disease instead of developing the cause of the disease. Foolish persons engrossed in their material assets are unnecessarily proud of being leaders of the people, but they ignore the spiritual value of man. Such illusioned leaders make plans covering any number of years, but they can hardly make humanity happy in a state conditioned by the threefold miseries inflicted by material nature. One cannot control the laws of nature by any amount of struggling. One must at last be subject to death, nature's ultimate law. Death, birth, old age, and illness are symptoms of the diseased condition of a living being. The highest aim of human life should therefore be to get free from these miseries and go back home, back to Godhead. Text 21. But with the eyes of love of Godhead, one can see its real identity as the place where Lord Krishna performs his pastimes with the cowherd boys and cowherd girls. 22. Chintamani prakara sadmashu kalpabriksha lakshavriteshu sudabir abhipalayantam lakshmi sahasra shatasam brahmasevyamanam govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending cows, yielding all desires, in abodes built with spiritual gems, and surrounded by millions of purposed trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune. Purport. This is a verse from the Brahma Samhita, 529. This description of the abode of Krishna gives us definite information of the transcendental place where not only is life eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge, but there are ample vegetables, milk, jewels, and beautiful homes and gardens tended by lovely damsels who are all goddesses of fortune. Krishna Loka is the topmost planet in the spiritual sky, and below it are innumerable spheres, a description of which can be found in Srimad Bhagavatam. In the beginning of Lord Brahma's self-realization, he was shown a transcendental vision of the Vaikuntha spheres by the grace of Narayana. Later, by the grace of Krishna, he was shown a transcendental vision of Krishna Loka. This transcendental vision is like the reception of television from the moon via a mechanical system for receiving modulated waves. But it is achieved by penance and meditation within oneself. Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, states that in Vaikuntha Loka, the material modes of nature, represented by the qualities of goodness, passion, and ignorance, have no influence. In the material world, the highest qualitative manifestation is goodness, which is characterized by truthfulness, mental equilibrium, cleanliness, control of the senses, simplicity, essential knowledge, faith in God, scientific knowledge, and so on. Nevertheless, all these qualities are mixed with passion and imperfection. But the qualities in Vaikuntha are a manifestation of God's internal potency, and therefore they are purely spiritual and transcendental, with no trace of material infection. No material planet, even Satyaloka, is comparable in quality to the spiritual planets, where the 5 inherent qualities of the material world, namely ignorance, misery, egoism, anger, and envy, are completely absent. Shall I repeat that? All right. No material planet, even such a loka, is comparable in quality to the spiritual planets, where the 5 inherent qualities of the material world, namely ignorance, misery, egoism, anger, and envy, are completely absent. Wouldn't it be nice to go there? In the material world, everything is a creation. Anything we can think of within our experience, including even our own bodies and minds, was created. This process of creation began with the life of Brahma, and the creative principle is prevalent all over the material universe because of the quality of passion. But since the quality of passion is conspicuous by its absence in the Vaikuntha planets, nothing there is created. Everything there is eternally existent. And because there is no mode of ignorance, there is also no question of annihilation or destruction. In the material world, one may try to make everything permanent by developing the above-mentioned qualities of goodness. But because the goodness in the material world is mixed with passion and ignorance, nothing here can exist permanently despite all the good plans of the best scientific brains. Therefore, in the material world, we have no experience of eternity, bliss, and fullness of knowledge. But in the spiritual world, because of the complete absence of the qualitative modes, everything is eternal, blissful, and cognizant. Everything can speak, everything can move, everything can hear, and everything can see in fully blessed existence for eternity. The situation being so, naturally, space and time, and the forms of past, present, and future, have no influence there. In the spiritual sky, there is no change because time has no influence. Consequently, the influence of Maya, the total external energy, which induces us to become more and more materialistic and forget our relationship with God, is also absent there. As spiritual sparks of the beams emanating from the transcendental body of the Lord, we are all permanently related with Him and equal to Him in quality. The material energy is a covering of the spiritual spark, but in the absence of that material covering, the living beings in Vaikuntha are never forgetful of their identities. They are eternally cognizant of their relationship with God in their constitutional position of rendering transcendental loving service to the Lord. Because they constantly engage in the transcendental service of the Lord, it is natural to conclude that their senses are also transcendental, for one cannot serve the Lord with material senses. The inhabitants of Vaikuntha Loka do not possess material senses with which to lord it over material nature. Persons with a poor fund of knowledge conclude that a place devoid of material qualities must be some sort of formless nothingness. In reality, however, there are qualities in the spiritual world, but they are different from the material qualities because everything there is eternal, unlimited, and pure. The atmosphere there is self-illuminating, and thus there is no need of a sun, a moon, fire, electricity, and so on. One who can reach that abode does not have to come back to the material world with a material body. There is no difference between atheists and the faithful in the Vaikuntha planets, because all who settle there are freed from the material qualities, and thus suras and asuras become equally obedient loving servitors of the Lord. The residents of Vaikuntha have brilliantly black complexions, much more fascinating and attractive than the dull white and black complexions found in the material world. Their bodies, being spiritual, have no equals in the material world. The beauty of a bright cloud, when lightning flashes on it, merely hints at their beauty. Generally, the inhabitants of Vaikuntha dress in yellow clothing. Their bodies are delicate and attractively built, and their eyes are like the petals of lotus flowers. Like Lord Vishnu, the residents of Vaikuntha have 4 hands decorated with a concha, wheel, club, and lotus flower. Their chests are beautifully broad and fully decorated with necklaces of a brilliant diamond-like metal, surrounded by costly jewels, never to be found in the material world. The residents of Vaikuntha are always powerful and effulgent. Some of them have complexions like red coral cat's eyes and red coral, cat's eyes, and lotus flowers, and each of them has earrings of costly jewels. On their heads they wear flowery crowns resembling garlands. In the Vaikunthas there are airplanes, but they make no tumultuous sounds. Material airplanes are not at all safe. They can fall down and crash at any time, for matter is imperfect in every respect. In the spiritual sky, however, the airplanes are also spiritual, and they are spiritually brilliant and bright. These airplanes do not fly business executives, politicians, or planning commissions as passengers, nor do they carry cargo or postal bags, for these are all unknown there. These planes are for pleasure trips only, and the residents of Vaikuntha fly in them with their heavenly, beautiful, fairy-like consorts. Therefore these airplanes, full of residents of Vaikuntha, both male and female, increase the beauty of the spiritual sky. We cannot imagine how beautiful they are, but their beauty may be compared to the clouds in the sky, accompanied by silver branches of electric lightning. The spiritual sky of Vaikuntha Loka is always decorated in this way. The full opulence of the internal potency of Godhead is always resplendent in Vaikuntha Loka, where goddesses of fortune are ever increasingly attached to serving the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead. These goddesses of fortune, accompanied by their friends, always create a festive atmosphere of transcendental mirth. Always singing the glories of the Lord, they are not silent even for a moment. There are unlimited Vaikuntha planets in the spiritual sky, and the ratio of these planets to the material planets in the material sky is 3:1. Thus the poor materialist is busy making political adjustments on a planet that is Thus the poor materialist is busy making political adjustments on a planet that is most insignificant in God's creation. To say nothing of this planet, Earth, the whole universe, with innumerable planets throughout the galaxies, is comparable to a single mustard seed in a bag full of mustard seeds. But the poor materialist makes plans to live comfortably here, and thus wastes his valuable human energy in something that is doomed to frustration. Instead of wasting his time with business speculations, he should seek the life of plain living and high spiritual thinking, and thus save himself from perpetual materialistic unrest. Even if a materialist wants to enjoy developed material facilities, he can transfer himself to planets where he can experience material pleasures much more advanced than those available on Earth. The best plan is to prepare oneself to return to the spiritual sky after leaving the body. However, if one is intent on enjoying material facilities, one can transfer himself to other planets in the material sky by utilizing yogic powers. The playful spaceships of the astronauts are but childish entertainments and are of no use for this purpose. The Ashtanga Yoga system is a materialistic art of controlling air by transferring it from the stomach to the navel, from the navel to the heart, from the heart to the collarbone, from there to the eyeballs, from there to the cerebellum, and from there to any desired planet. The velocities of air and light are taken into consideration by the material scientist, but he has no information of the velocity of the mind and intelligence. We have some limited experience of the velocity of the mind, because in a moment we can transfer our minds to places hundreds of thousands of miles away. Intelligence is even finer. Finer than intelligence is the soul, which is not matter like mind and intelligence, but spirit, or antimatter. The soul is hundreds of thousands of times finer and more powerful than intelligence. We can thus only imagine the velocity of the soul in its traveling from one planet to another. Needless to say, the soul travels by its own strength and not with the help of any type of material vehicle. The bestial civilization of eating, sleeping, fearing, and sense gratifying has misled modern man into forgetting how powerful a soul he has. As we have already described, the soul is a spiritual spark, many, many times more illuminating, dazzling, and powerful than the sun, moon, or electricity. Human life is spoiled when man does not realize his real identity with his soul. Lord Chaitanya appeared with Lord Nityänanda to save man from this type of misleading civilization. Srimad Bhagavatam also describes how yogis can travel to all the planets in the universe. When the vital force is lifted to the cerebellum, there is every chance that this force will burst out from the eyes, nose, ears, etc., as these are places that are known as the seventh orbit of the vital force. But the yogis can block these holes by complete suspension of air. The yogi then concentrates the vital force in the middle position, that is, between the eyebrows. At this position, the yogi can think of the planet to which he wants to go after leaving the body. He can then decide whether he wants to go to the abode of Krishna in the transcendental Vaikunthas, from which he will not be required to descend into the material world, or to travel to higher planets in the material universe. The perfect yogi is at liberty to do either. For the perfect yogi who has attained success in the method of leaving his body in perfect consciousness, transferring from one planet to another, is as easy as an ordinary man's walking to the grocery store. As already discussed, the material body is just a covering of the spiritual soul. Mind and intelligence are the undercoverings. Mind and intelligence are the undercoverings, and the gross body of earth, water, fire, and so on is the overcoating of the soul. As such, any advanced soul who has realized himself by the yogic process, who knows the relationship between matter and spirit, can leave the gross dress of the soul in perfect order and as he desires. By the grace of God, we have complete freedom. Because the Lord is kind to us, we can live anywhere, either in the spiritual sky or in the material sky, upon whichever planet we desire. However, misuse of this freedom causes one to fall down into the material world and suffer the threefold miseries of conditioned life. The living of a miserable life in the material world by dint of the soul's choice is nicely illustrated by Milton in Paradise Lost. Similarly, by choice, the soul can regain paradise and return home, back to Godhead. At the critical time of death, one can place the vital force between the two eyebrows and decide where he wants to go. If he is reluctant to maintain any connection with the material world, he can, in less than a second, reach the transcendental abode of Vaikuntha and appear there, completely in his spiritual body, which will be suitable for him in the spiritual atmosphere. He has simply to desire to leave the material world, both in finer and in grosser forms, and then move the vital force to the topmost planet of the skull, and leave the body from the hole in the skull, called the Brahmarandra. This is easy for one perfect in the practice of yoga. Of course, man is endowed with free will, and as such, if he does not want to free himself from the material world, he may enjoy the life of Brahmapada, occupation of the post of Brahma, and visit Siddhaloka, the planets of materially perfected beings, who have full capacity to control gravity, space, and time. To visit these higher planets in the material universe, one need not give up his mind and intelligence, finer matter, but need only give up grosser matter, the material body. Each and every planet has its particular atmosphere, and if one wants to travel to any particular planet within the material universe, one has to adapt his material body to the climatic condition of that planet. For instance, if one wants to go from India to Europe, where the climatic condition is different, one has to change his dress accordingly. Similarly, a complete change of body is necessary if one wants to go to the transcendental planets of Vaikuntha. However, if one wants to go to the higher material planets, he can keep his finer dress of mind, intelligence, and ego, but has to leave his gross dress body made of earth, water, fire, etc. 1 second. When one goes to a transcendental planet, it is necessary to change both the finer and gross bodies, for one has to reach the spiritual sky completely in a spiritual form. This change of dress will take place automatically at the time of death if one so desires. The Bhagavad Gita confirms that one will attain his next material body according to his desires at the time he leaves his body. The desire of the mind carries the soul to a suitable atmosphere as the wind carries aromas from one place to another. Unfortunately, those who are not yogis but gross materialists, who throughout their lives indulge in sense gratification, are puzzled by the disarrangement of the bodily and mental condition at the time of death. Such gross sensualists, encumbered by the main ideas, desires, and associations of the lives they have led, desire something against their interest, and thus foolishly take on new bodies that perpetuate their material miseries. Systematic training of the mind and intelligence is therefore needed so that at the time of death one may consciously desire a suitable body, either on this planet or another material planet, or even a transcendental planet. A civilization that does not consider the progressive advancement of the immortal soul merely fosters a bestial life of ignorance. It is foolish to think that every soul that passes away goes to the same place. Either the soul goes to a place he desires at the time of death, or upon leaving his body, he is forced to accept a position according to his acts in his previous life. The difference between the materialist and the yogi is that a materialist cannot determine his next body, whereas a yogi can consciously attain a suitable body for enjoyment in the higher planets. Throughout his life, the gross materialist, who is constantly after sense gratification, spends all day earning his livelihood to maintain his family, and at night he wastes his energy in sex enjoyment or else goes to sleep, thinking about all he has done in the daytime. Prabhupada. Vintage Prabhupada. That is the monotonous life of the materialist. Although differently graded as businessmen, lawyers, politicians, professors, judges, coolies, pickpockets, laborers, and so on, materialists all simply engage in eating, sleeping, fearing, and sense gratification, and thus spoil their valuable lives, pursuing luxury and neglecting to perfect their lives through spiritual realization. Yogis, however, try to perfect their lives, and therefore the Bhagavad Gita enjoins that everyone should become a yogi. Yoga is the system for linking the service in the service of the Lord. Only under superior guidance can one practice such yoga in his life without changing his social position. As already described, a yogi can go anywhere he desires without mechanical help, for a yogi can place his mind and intelligence within the air circulating inside his body, and by practicing the art of breath control, he can mix that air with the air that blows all over the universe outside his body. With the help of this universal air, a yogi can travel to any planet and get a body suitable for its atmosphere. We can understand this process by comparing it to the electronic transmission of radio waves, radio messages. With radio transmitters, sound waves produced at a certain station can travel all over the earth in seconds. But sound is produced from the ethereal sky, and as already mentioned, subtler than the ethereal sky is the mind, and finer than the mind is the intelligence. Spirit is still finer than the intelligence, and by nature it is completely different from matter. Thus, we can just imagine how quickly the spirit soul can travel through the universal atmosphere. To come to the stage of manipulating finer elements like mind, intelligence, and spirit, one needs appropriate training, an appropriate mode of life, and appropriate association. Such training depends upon sincere prayers, devotional service, achievement of success in mystic perfection, and the successful merging of oneself in the activities of the soul and super soul. A gross materialist, whether he be an empiric philosopher, a scientist, a psychologist, or whatever, cannot attain such success through blunt efforts and word jugglery. Materialists who perform yajnas or great sacrifices are comparatively better than grosser materialists who do not know anything beyond laboratories and test tubes. Laboratories and test tubes. The advanced materialists who perform such sacrifices can reach the planet called Vaishvanara, a fiery planet similar to the sun. On this planet, which is situated on the way to Brahmaloka, the topmost planet of the universe, such an advanced materialist can free himself from all traces of vice and its effects. When such a materialist is purified, he can rise to the orbit of the pole star, Dhruvaloka. Within this orbit, which is called the Shishumara Chakra, are situated the Aditya Lokas and the Vaikuntha planet within this universe. A purified materialist who has performed many sacrifices, undergone severe penances, and given the major portion of his wealth in charity, can reach such planets as Dhruvaloka. And if he becomes still more qualified, there he can penetrate still higher orbits and pass through the navel of the universe to reach the planet Maharloka, where great sages like Bhrigu Muni live. In Maharloka, one can live even to the time of the partial annihilation of the universe. This annihilation begins when Anantadev, from the lowest position of the universe, produces a great blazing fire. The heat of this fire reaches even Maharloka, and then the residents of Maharloka travel to Brahmaloka, which exists for twice the duration of Paradra time. In Brahmaloka, there is an unlimited number of airplanes that are controlled not by yantra, machine, but by mantra, psychic action. Because of the existence of the mind and intelligence on Brahmaloka, its residents have feelings of happiness and distress, but there is no cause of lamentation from old age, death, fear, or distress. They feel sympathy, however, for the suffering living beings who are consumed in the fire of annihilation. The residents of Brahmaloka do not have gross material bodies to change at death, but they transform their subtle bodies into spiritual bodies and thus enter the spiritual sky. The residents of Brahmaloka can attain perfection in three different ways. Virtuous persons who reach Brahmaloka by dint of their pious work become masters of various planets. After the resurrection of Brahma, those who have worshipped... Virtuous persons, we'll repeat that again. Virtuous persons who reach Brahmaloka by dint of their pious work become masters of various planets after the resurrection of Brahma. Those who have worshipped Garbhodakashayi Vishnu are liberated with Brahma, and those who are pure devotees of the personality of Godhead at once push through the covering of the universe and enter the spiritual sky. The numberless universes exist together in foam-like clusters, and so only some of them are surrounded by the water of the causal ocean. When agitated by the glance of Karanadakashayi Vishnu, material nature produces the total elements, which are 8 in number, and which gradually evolve from finer to gross. A part of ego is the sky, a part of which is air, a part of which is fire, a part of which is water, a part of which is earth. Thus, one universe inflates to an area of 4 billion miles in diameter. A yogi who desires gradual liberation must penetrate all the different coverings of the universe, including the subtle coverings of the 3 qualitative modes of material nature. One who does this never has to return to this material world. According to Shukadev Goswami, the above description of the material and spiritual skies is neither imaginary nor utopian. The actual facts are recorded in Vedic hymns, and Lord Vasudeva disclosed them to Lord Brahma when Brahma satisfied him. One can achieve the perfection of life only when he has a definite idea of Vaikuntha and the Supreme Godhead. One should always think about and describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for this is recommended in both the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavad Purana, which are 2 authorized commentaries upon the Vedas. Lord Chaitanya has made all these subject matters easier for the fallen people of this age to accept, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta has therefore presented them for the easy understanding of all concerned. Wow, what a purport! And Srila Prabhupada has made these subject matters even easier for the fallen people of this age to accept. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to the glorious devotees who have edited this text to such a flowing, wonderful, sonorous description. That purport contains everything. I wonder how many pages it is. We can't tell. Anyway, we'll find out. Let somebody know. Anyway, that's it for my voice tonight, folks. That was a lot of reading. It must be at least 15 pages of purport. At least. Okay. So that's it tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Vaishnavis and Vaishnavas. We hope that you've enjoyed this reading, and we also hope that you have some reflections. That was a lot of information in one purport to digest, to hear and remember and digest. So, luckily for us, Prabhupada has given us these books so that we can read them again and again. Okay, Hare Krishna, it's over to you. It's Sunday, maybe everyone's celebrating something, somewhere. Or maybe they're just sensitive and trying to give me a break. Who knows?
Santarupa Devi Dasi says thank you. Santarupa.
Santarupa, Hare Krishna, Santarupa Devi Dasi.
She says thank you, Maharaj.
You're entirely welcome. You probably speak for everyone else because they're too shy after that long a purport to continue having me speak. All right, we'll sign off for today. That was an hour of pure, unadulterated, pure hearing of the nectar of Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, and by the grace of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and by the grace of Srila Prabhupada and Jiva Goswami, and so many other of the Goswamis, we've heard a wonderful purport that pretty much defines and explains everything. Yes, we have somebody.
It's from Oliver, Bhakta Oliver.
Oh, Hare Krishna Bhakta Oliver, Haribo, Haribo.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the classes. They are consistently mind-blowing. I found it interesting when previously we read about the 5 different types of ignorance near the beginning of the CC readings, with the last type of ignorance being to think there is something beyond the absolute truth. Does this relate to the living entity desiring to enjoy the material energy with the conception that there will be greater happiness?
Yes.
Please forgive me if this is in the realms of speculation.
It's not in the realms of speculation. It was very well said. You know, when Brahma first comes, these are the first things he creates. He doesn't do it by himself. It's already created. I was listening to Gopi Puranadana Prabhu today, commenting on certain verses in the 3rd canto. I forget the exact verses, but there it's describing how Brahma created the universe. And there it's described that in the stem of a lotus that comes from the navel of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu and ends with the golden lotus flower, which becomes the abode of Lord Brahma, where he sits, within that stem, the universal form is. And the universal form is the prototype. In other words, all of the different concepts, like a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, all these qualities of life and environments and bodies and everything, existence, material existence, they're already there in the universal form. And those verses which describe how the prayers are offered to the universal form to get the universal form to awaken means that once that's done, then they actually come out from that stem into the space which is created by the covering of the universe and half filled with the perspiration of the body of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu. And from there, these transformations, which we already heard in this purport, part of the sky becomes sound, a part of sound becomes ether, part of the ether becomes fire, part of fire becomes water, part of fire becomes... That means the total elements of all those things are still there, but they're transformed. Part of them, of the original energy, is transformed one after another to create the forms of this material world and our ability to experience different material experiences. So it's very, very deep, it's very, very complex. And those are in the material world. Without this knowledge, they haven't the foggiest idea. And look what's going on as a result. The leaders are completely bewildered. They have no idea what to do. They discriminate against one another because of differences of body and cause disruption and quarrel and dissension and eventually anger and frustration and anger and violence. And this is the cycle, again and again and again. One empire after another, after another, after another on this earth planet. So we should be conscious of just how fortunate we are to get this knowledge explained from a platform of detachment from it by these great liberated souls such as Srila Prabhupada. And our pathway back to that liberated condition is through the association, through the assimilation of the knowledge that comes from these great personalities, and the incorporation of the principles into our own character, into our own thinking and feeling and willing and actions or deeds. There was one section of this purport which talked about the mode of goodness and how if we become in the mode of goodness, we develop certain qualities like religiousness and scientific knowledge and cleanliness and truthfulness and peace, peacefulness, and all these things. They are possible if we agree to accept the authority and the superiority of higher personalities who actually know. In the material world, there's no conception that there's perfection. Therefore, they take these things as just pie in the sky or some kind of manufactured mythology or something like that. So this is the goal of hearing these things and eventually being able to realize them and taste them for ourselves. To qualify ourselves to leave the material body and go back to the spiritual world. Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatvataha. To know the appearance and activities of the Lord to be divya, transcendental, beyond the material modes of nature. In truth means factually, not just imagining. So we have a great goal to achieve, and we have the means to achieve it. Hare Krishna. Anybody else?
A few. Next is from Daityari Haridas.
Daitya Hari Hari.
He says, Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribo.
In the purport to verse 522, Prabhupada talks about merging of self in the activities of the soul and the supersoul in relation to yogis training to manipulate finer elements like mind, intelligence, and spirit. How do we practically train ourselves to perceive and experience the supersoul in everything that we do and elevate and become more in tune with Krishna's will?
But by following the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita. By first of all purifying your senses, and then your mind and your intelligence, and through that purified intelligence, getting the strength to steady the mind with spiritual strength, with Krishna consciousness. We steady the mind, steady the senses, and then practice by hearing about what spiritual personalities do. We practice doing those things, same things, with the material elements. We fashion the deity. We worship the deity. We hear the glories of the deity. We offer our food to the deity. We dance and chant in ecstasy in front of the deity, knowing that the deity is Krishna. Even the forms of the deity in photographs are not different than Krishna. And if you treat them like that, if you practice keeping everything very clean and neat and fresh and fragrant, etc., etc., and pleasant for the pleasure of the Lord, then the Lord from within the heart does it. It's not that we do it. There's nothing that we can actually do, but we can practice. We can practice. And by practicing, becoming attached, hearing the Bhagavatam over and over and over again, we'll like to hear about Krishna. We'll like to hear about specific pastimes of Krishna. We'll like to hear about specific relationships that Krishna has with specific devotees. And we'll want to be like that. And then we'll practice more and more, and Krishna will take us there. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. Krishna has to give us. How he gives us? When we become eligible to be chosen by him. We have to become such in quality, that Krishna will want to be with us. We have to stop blaming Krishna for putting us here in this world, as we just heard in a beautifully put purport by Prabhupada, that we chose to come here. So the first thing you have to do is to choose to go back to the spiritual world. And how can you choose that if you don't know anything about the spiritual world? So first you have to read these books, cultivate the knowledge within the books, learn to remember them, and visualize, and desire, and want to go there. Focus your attention, focus your desire there. And then when you leave your body, then you'll be able to go back to Godhead. Because Krishna will take you. That's it.
Next is something from Rati Manjari.
Hey Rati.
She says, Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. What a wonderful and transcendental journey we made tonight. Srila Prabhupada sounds like a transcendental travel agent.
That's good. That's well said.
Inviting everyone to use his or her free will to the optimum ability.
Yes, correct. Just like Prabhupada used to use the example when they live in the regions where there's always snow and ice and cold and, up above the Arctic Circle or close to it, in Sweden and Denmark and those places. In North America, Upper Canada, Northern Canada. They sometimes have, these travel agents, and they have pictures, of, islands, tropical islands with, water and sand and beautiful colors and palm trees. And when I was a kid, I remember the first thing I used to draw was this half of a little island with a palm tree and the sun shining on it and making it in beautiful colors. And just because it's so miserable where they want to go there. But they have to find out about it before they want to go there. So that's a good analogy. I like it. The travel agent. Srila Prabhupada, the transcendental travel agent for Vaikuntha. Goloka Vrindavan.
There's a continued part to what she was writing.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Srila Prabhupada sounds like a transcendental travel agent inviting everyone to use his or her free will to the optimum ability and travel to the planets one desires, with the highest destination being the spiritual world and all its different partitions. Absolutely masterfully written, both enticing as well as instructing us by stating the limits and conditions one needs to measure up to in order to be successful in reaching the highest destination at the time of death.
Correct.
Thank you for your steady recitation, Guru Maharaj. By sharing this incomparable knowledge, you are keeping the gate to the spiritual world wide open.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
And this is from Saloni Sachisundari.
Saloni Sachisundari.
Robichan.
Huh?
Robichan.
Robichan.
Says, Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. What happens to the soul when someone commits suicide and does not die a natural death?
It depends. It depends on their consciousness at the time. If they committed suicide purposefully out of wanting to avoid the suffering of the material world, then they'll have to stay in between a gross body or outside of a gross body for some time, because they've refused the material body. So that the modes of nature, the laws of nature, the super soul says, okay, if you don't want a material body, so you can be stuck in a subtle body, and you can't. Nobody will be able to see you, and you won't be able to interact with the gross world. And that's a great suffering, because the mind contains the desires to enjoy, to act, to do so many things. But in the material world, you need body, the gross body, to do them. So that means that person has to suffer for some time with the desires, but without any ability to fulfill those desires. Sometimes those people will actually try to enter into a gross body of a person who is weak-minded or has some kind of mental disability or whatever, or some abnormality, and they'll try to live within that body and enjoy the facilities of the gross material body. If a person commits suicide out of separation from Krishna, then he maybe have to be punished for that sinful act, but he will be promoted. Gradually, he'll be promoted.
Something from Hannah.
Hare Krishna, Hannah.
She writes, Hare Krishna, Srila Gurudev. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hearing that last purport made me appreciate you so much. I found it very extraordinary to read that purport and see you as a perfect result, as was described here, of the type of person one becomes when following this process and reading again and again until you understand it. Thank you for doing all you do and for being you. Please forgive my offenses.
Hey, Hannah, I was talking with Prana Hari today. He called me up, and he's telling me about all the things he's doing to try to take advantage of the pandemic and preaching in various ways through the internet. And he was telling me that he talked to you or you talked to him or whatever, and you were telling him how you had started a reading group because it was all men, you felt uncomfortable, which is natural that you would. And I wanted to suggest that perhaps if you give the contacts of those persons to Pranahari, he can follow up and then get them into a reading group in which they can get the same advantage. And I mean, you can join it too, but just to try to relieve you of your discomfort, I'm suggesting that you voluntarily, give Pranahari those contacts. Everybody has their service to perform, ways they can contribute.
She says, yes, I have, and they are joining now. And
oh, good.
Bye-bye.
Oh, very good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
And Saloni Saji Sundari writes, thank you, Maharaj.
You're very welcome. Okay, that's it for now. It's getting late, and I had a long reading. That was a long purport. Fantastic, though. Don't think I'm complaining. It was absolutely ecstatic. That purport is a classic. It really is. You could make it into a little leaflet, or not leaflet, pamphlet, to pass out to people, to let them know what we're doing, what this world's about, what's going on. Okay, thank you so much, all of you, and we'll see you tomorrow night, same time, same place, same atmosphere, here in the Haven, Hythe, Kent, Southeast England, UK. Hare Krishna. Shri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.